Had so many of the king's guard truly been under Dari's influence? I found the idea unsettling, but I still seemed more composed than Mallow and Sabudara. Sabudara appeared especially unnerved to dwell in the palace of her realm's autocrat, and clutched tight the large leather box she carried, while Mallow whispered comments to calm her as they walked behind me.
I've no idea what to do now,
said Prince Campbell as he wandered before us.
I have nothing now, no crown nor throne, for I have not yet been formally declared regent. And neither do I have much of my treasury, nor many of the high city guards. Dozens followed Dari to wherever he has gone, and the others fled in fear. And such is the amount that Dari stole that I cannot afford to purchase more.
You've no word of where he's fled to, sir? I asked him. You've done no searches, heard no news?
Jari Abhidar advises silence,
sighed the prince.
If word were to get out that I'd been so taken by Dari, I'd never regain a steady hand upon the throne. Instead, he has insisted he go to his own allies in the kingdom and seek the traitor secretly. But that will take time. Time I do not have. But I received your notice about what you require to find Dari. I hope what we gathered may suffice.
He shot me an uncertain glance.
But you're sure this will work, signal?
I am told it will, sir, he said, but I've not a nose like my peers here. His gaze lingered on Mallow and Sabudara. He made a disdainful pout, as if the sight offended him, and turned away. We came to the Sabin trophy room where Gortys had perished not more than 2 days ago. Now it contained a large table, and there upon it were the personal belongings that Satrap Dari had left behind. Scarves, robes, belts, jewellery, soaps, trousers, leggings, and other attire of a kind I did not know the guest wear Yarrow undergarments.
Which piece would you prefer, Signal?
The prince asked me. I stepped back and gestured to Mallow and Sabudara. The two wardens sauntered up to the table and reviewed the garments, like a carpenter might study planks of wood, estimating their grain and quality. Sabudara placed her leather box on the ground, and then the two of them went to work, plucking a few garments from the table, tossing them aside, rejects, I suppose. Then the prince and I were treated to an unusual sight. The two wardens began stooping, and vigorously sniffing each remaining garment, swallowing occasionally as if they could taste the aromas on their tongues.
Is such an act common in the empire?
The prince asked. I watched as Mallow came close to burying her face in a pair of leggings. I do not know, sir, he said, but it is quite uncommon to me. Mallow and Sabudara then stood and made hand signals to one another, speaking in silent language of gestures, I reckoned, for they knew the folk about him spoke Pidgin. It appeared to be a debate of ferocious intentions. Finally, Mallow yielded and gathered 5 of the remaining garments from the table. While she did this, Sabudara opened the leather box. Within lay a strange contraption, consisting of a small bronze barrel lined with glass on the interior, with a crank jutting out from one side. Sabudara took the barrel out and opened it at one end, and Mallow dropped the garments inside. Mallow then rummaged about within the box and produced a small vial of reagents, uncorked it, and dribbled it over the clothing. Then she corked it again, closed the barrel, replaced it, and began vigorously turning the contraption's crank. The barrel spun within the box, whirling over the top. She spun it until her arm was exhausted, and let Sabudara take over. When the two wardens had cranked the apparatus for nearly 10 minutes, they removed the barrel from the box, popped the crank from one end, and placed it into a new notch on the box's side. Mallow turned the crank once more, but now the top lid of the barrel descended on a little track, squeezing the fluid-covered garments tight. When Mallow could crank it no more, Sabudara produced 4 empty glass vials and held them out. Mallow opened the contraption and, like a vintner doling out a precious liquor, tipped the barrel over. A tiny thread of umber fluid came dribbling out, which Sabudara quickly collected in the vials. Sabudara corked 3 of the vials, then held up the final 4th, shot Mallow a loathing look, and took a sniff. Sabudara then exploded into an attack of sneezes and coughing, but then she recovered and gestured to Mallow. Yes, yes. It works, sighed Mallow. We have distilled Dari's scent, unpleasant as it is. It is a horrid thing to sniff at such a distillation, but it is our best hope. We shall disperse this to our wardens and be off.
Then you can track him, said the prince, and return all he stole.
We shall follow the scent as far as it goes, sir, she said. Beyond that, I can say no more. Besides that, the longer we wait, the more the scent shall fade.
Then by my father's blood, go, said the prince. Find this traitor and return my kingdom to me, I beg of you.
Then he sat down in a chair, buried his face in his hands, and began to weep. As we left the king's hall, we were joined by 6 of Mallow's wardens. 11 more watched from the wood, I knew, silently moving with us. I was unsure what kind of resistance we'd be met with, but given how I'd seen them perform in the jungles, I felt that 17 wardens would be enough to overcome nearly any Yarrow force, or so I hoped. When we left the high city, both Mallow and Sabudara took another great sniff of the vial of Dari's scent. Muttering discontentedly, they then put pads upon their knees and thick gloves on their hands, and then fell to all fours and crawled upon the earth, sniffing the wet grass as if they were hounds. Then Mallow rose, pointed, and said, "That way, I catch it right now." "Are you going to crawl the entire way?" I asked. "You'd catch more scent too if you put your nose to the earth," she snapped. "Try it sometime." We went west, slipping down the carriage paths of the rolling hills, and off into the trees as the sun met the horizon. The rest of the wardens rejoined us, silently emerging from the jungle like spirits. The vials of Dari's scent were shared among them. They prowled through the leaves, occasionally dropping to the ground to sniff the soil at the base of the tree. At one fork, Sabudara paused, sniffing a patch of clay quite hard, and arose and said, "Gora." "Horses," explained Mallow. "She catches their scent here." "He fled on horseback?" I asked. "Not with all that gold, surely." "Let us assume then he fled in a litter," said Mallow, "moving as quickly as horses can pull such a load over poor roads. I gauge they must have moved some 10 or 15 leagues since last night. We shall have to hurry. Are you ready for a dose of kinefage?" I pulled a face. How I detest that stuff. Not just the taste, but I should be hungry for days after. Yes, but we will feast and be merry if it helps us catch our prey. She gestured to her wardens and hissed, Sapida Posana! Then we stopped, pulled tiny black bottles from our packs, uncorked them, and took a great draught. I shuddered as the acrid black substance dripped down my throat. Yet the second it struck my stomach, I felt a brightness in my arms and legs, as if my veins had flooded through with fresh mountain water, and the world grew still and clear about me. I had the sudden flighty urge to laugh and jump and twirl. Let us move, said Mallow, and stay close, Coll. We shall cut across country, and it may be hard to spy my folk in the trees as the sky grows darker. The Empire had long struggled to produce unnaturally fast forces that could live tolerable lives. The effort had eventually proven so difficult they'd abandoned it. Instead, they either opted for imbuing some soldiers with unnaturally powerful stamina, or preferably dispensing a graft like a kinifage, which granted folk a temporary aptitude for speed and endurance. A soldier with a belly of kinifage brewing about in them could run all day and night and never tire. Run we now did, the wardens and I, sprinting through the darkening forests of the Elder West, dodging between towering trees and dancing through the ferns. Our passage was speedy, shadowy, and nice silent, and though our mission was fraught, the graft made my heart glad and sprightly, and I bounded along like a hind romping on a dewy morning. Hours passed, and I lost all concept of how far we'd travelled. I occasionally caught a glimpse of torchlight amid the darkening hills, perhaps a noble's distant estate, or maybe the lanterns of Dari's litter. I did not know. Our trail led us along a babbling stream, and there Mallow raised a hand and we slowed. It was deep night now, the stars glimmering greedily above. She whispered with her wardens, then said to me, Few of us know this part of the Elder West well, but we know we are now on the River Kanda, which runs parallel to the Bunti Road to the north. I wiped a rainstorm of sweat from my brow. All right. It used to be an estate road where many noblemen once lived, but as the Elder West has declined, many of these estates are now abandoned, or so we thought. You think Dari has gone to one of these abandoned estates? I said. Yes, his escape has been well prepared, so I assume he prepared this place for his flight. He has been wise enough to take this back path, rather than the main road as well. We must catch him before he gets to where he is going, for he shall surely get fresher horses, and perhaps more troops. We will have a fight ahead of us regardless. Prepare yourself. We sank low, and continued our run along the river. After another 3 leagues, Sabudara raised a hand, and pointed off into the ferns north of us. We slowed and studied the hills before us, and Mallow spoke so quietly that only her wardens could hear her, and many began creeping off into the foliage, vanishing like eidolons into the night mist. You will stay with me, she whispered to me. We find many ill signs about us now. Torch smoke on the wind, many boot prints in the soil and more. We are close to Dari, we think. I followed her up through the ferns as more of her wardens left us, melting into the night. Then I spied torchlight and lamplight filtering through the trees, and occasionally heard the call of a man's voice. Finally Mallow and I stopped behind the trunk of a large tree and peered out. A low sprawling clutch of buildings was arrayed before us, all built of wood, and most rather crudely. Many of them had been intended for the sheltering of animals or harvests, though at the centre of their constellation was a large house, sporting 2 stories and a wide sloping roof. The house of the master, I assume. Positioned before the house was a long litter of soldiers and horses and carts, bedecked with many boxes and crates and trunks. I squinted at them, but could not make out much besides the glint of armour and iron about them. Nigh 30 soldiers, Mallow whispered, well armoured, and all of strong make. Dari bride the best of the lot. A wise choice, so much Yarrow treasure is on that litter, I said. True. We shall kill the soldiers and take Dari alive if he lets us. I assume we cannot attack to disable, I said. This is no arrest call. An injured Yarrow soldier will still struggle to strike us down. When we attack, we mean to kill. My folk will surround this place and signal when they are ready. A soft frog's call. Then I will give another signal and launch the attack. I gazed at the troops gathering about the master's house. The soldiers are well clad though, in mail and helm. A soft snort. That will not be an issue. When enough have fallen, go and secure the litter. I will not have some bastard filtering a chest and cause Pavita to bellow that we stole his kingdom's filthy money. We watched the Yarrow soldiers milling about, some going to and fro to fetch new horses or water or other materials. The wait was nothing short of agonizing, and I fought not to jump at every sound or movement, for the woods were alive with the cheeping of frogs and the fluttering of errant moths. Then Mallow hissed beside me. I glanced at her and saw that her eyes were locked on something ahead. One of the soldiers was ambling along the estate houses with a low form at his side. A hound, large and well-muscled, its pink tongue dangling cheerfully from its mouth. Both of us sank lower as the soldier and hound walked the tree line. For a moment I felt sure we had not been spotted, and my belly flooded with relief. Then the hound stopped. Its ears pricked up and its pink tongue retracted. It gazed at the tree line where we crouched and took a cautious step forward. There was a long, frozen moment as neither we nor the hound moved. Then it erupted, baying at the trees, leaping back and forth, its nose pointed in our direction. Another hiss from Mallow, then a soft click as she knocked an arrow. The beast's master approached and chided the hound in pity, as if to say, enough, calm your noise. Yet though he tried to restrain it with a lead, the hound resisted violently, baying at where we lay. Finally the soldier paused and peered into the trees. His body tensed, and one hand slowly moved to the hilt of his sword. The hound continued howling at his side, and 2 more soldiers emerged from the houses. One called a question, and though I knew little Pythian, I knew he said, "What's wrong?" The guard with the hound responded uncertainly, "I'm not sure." Then he drew his blade and began to advance toward the trees. I swallowed and gripped my sword. Then I peered through the leaves and counted our foes, 3 soldiers, 1 hound, yet the soldier at the back was of most danger. He bore a short bow with him, and from his handling of it, he was well familiar with the weapon. Stay low, I told myself. Defend Mallow. Low strikes, make yourself obscured in the dark. I steeled myself as I heard the crunch of the soldiers' footsteps in the leaves. Then, several things happened at once. First, there was a series of curious clicking calls from the forest about us. Then Mallow pressed her hands to her mouth and made another sound, this one higher and warbling like that of a dove. Then she sat up very slightly, drew her bow, and fired. The soldier with the short bow made a low, gurgling cry, and he fell to the ground, thrashing wildly. The hound ceased its baying and whined. The two remaining soldiers jumped and turned to stare at their fallen comrade. Mallow's arrow was now protruding from the base of his throat, and he pawed at it uselessly before going still. Then the night lit up with screams as the many wardens in the trees loosed their arrows. I drew my blade and leapt forth, my muscles filling with memories, my blood hot with violence, my bones like ice within my flesh. The two soldiers fell easily to me. The first was still gazing at his fallen comrade when I struck him down. The next was struggling to unsheath his sword when I fell upon him. The hound proved a coward, thankfully. I had never fought a dog before, and did not know the nature of it, for it barked twice before whining and slinking away. The screams in the night grew louder and wilder, and I darted back to the cover of the trees and knelt beside Mallow. "Shall we stay or move in?" I panted. "We move in," she snapped. "But I could have killed them faster had you not leapt before my aim. Do not be so eager in the next fight, or I might accidentally shoot you in the fucking back." I rolled my eyes and helped her to her feet. Then we joined the battle, I leading with my sword, she firing arrows over my shoulder. I had drawn my blade several times in my service with the Udex, and felled a fair few foes who had been a deathly hand with a sword. But this was my first time taking part in a battle of such scale, with over a dozen allies fighting with me, and the enemy emerging from all about us. It was a mad, wild, confusing thing, all the night screaming and surging. I had no time for clarity or conscience. My body thrummed with all the memories of so many movements, the way I'd trained my flesh to respond to threats, and I felt myself pulled through the night, hacking and feinting and dodging, while Mallow hissed, "Calm your blood, you shall get us all killed with your frenzy." I tried to do as she bade, and as I did I realized I now saw unfamiliar faces among the fray. Not Yarrow soldiers, nor wardens, but skinny, starved Pythian folk, wielding clubs and knives and ropes and farm tools and cooking blades. They did not attack me, but instead fell upon the Yarrow soldiers, beating them or choking them or stabbing between their armor with what appeared to be kitchen knives, screaming howls of unbridled hate. Now Kari, I realized. This estate had housed servants, and now that they had an opportunity, they rose up against their masters. "This sight cheers me," Mallow shouted, "but it is not what I wished. They could spoil all if this goes awry." "You seek out Dari," I said. "I shall secure the litter, that clear?" She nodded and cried out to the now Kari in Pythian. I raised my sword and dashed off into the night. The fight went quickly after that, but to my battle-crazed mind, every second was an hour. I raced to the litter and found one soldier standing at the back, unsure whether to fight or flee. When he realized I was running at him, he raised his sword and cried out, but I cut him down easily, wounding him in the thigh, then the arm. He lay on the ground, screaming in pain, but I ignored him and focused on securing the litter. A train of carts stretched before me. To my eye, most of its burden was the treasure of the Arrow. Yet as I walked to the litter, I spied a few boxes that looked unusual. They were crates of an Imperial make, for only Imperial shipments used fretfire in such a way. I stepped closer, squinting in the dim light, and saw a symbol imprinted on the sides of them. The sigil of the Amoths, the drop of blood set in a headsman. I stared, nigh overcome. Then I stepped closer and took a mighty sniff. A powerful, acrid scent hit my nostrils, the unmistakable aroma of reagents. These were reagent crates, almost assuredly robbed from the Agoth barges on the canals. I'd never expected to find them here, among Dari's stolen treasure. But it did make a crude sense. Reagents were some of the most valuable things in all the Empire, and a greedy soul like Dari would ensure he got a price for them wherever he might flee. Yet were these the reagents Pictus needed to make his weapon? Had Dari been hiding them the entire time, here at his secret estate? I was no Agoth and could not tell. I returned to the front of the litter to guard it and wait for the battle to end. After what felt like an eternity, Sabudara emerged from the night and gave me the report. 26 Yarrow soldiers dead, and 3 wounded, unlikely to survive, including the one I had just cut down. All the wardens had survived, but 4 Nalkari had fallen as they'd fought against those who had enslaved them. "And Dari?" I asked. Sabudara shook her head. "Of him, nothing," I cursed. "Tell Mallow I need her," I said. "Tell her I have found something important among the litter here, and to come when she can." Sabudara nodded, then vanished back into the darkness. An hour later, I heard Mallow calling my name. I ventured into the clutch of buildings, and found her standing with her wardens over 5 bodies that had apparently been dragged from the houses. She pointed at one. "Take a look." I did so, and moaned in dismay. I did not need to consult my memories to recognize that green-painted face, or those cold, cutting eyes, indifferent even in death. Satrap Dari's throat had been viciously slashed open, it seemed, and his chin and chest were soaked in blood. "How did this happen?" I asked. "One of the Nalkari cut his throat," said Mallow, "and she got to run through for trying. Poor girl's dead, and didn't even see the age of 15, I wager. A cruel thing. I wish they had all waited. We would have gladly freed them." I fell to my knees, struggling with the weight of it. "So," I said softly, "the one man who knew Pictus most is now dead, and we shall get no help from him." Mallow spat, and bitterly said, "So it seems. He cannot tell us where our foe hides now. A black fate this is, I curse it gladly. But what is this important thing you wished me to see?" I shot back up, remembering. "The reagents." "Reagents?" "Yes, Dari had many crates of stolen reagents on his litter. Perhaps the stolen reagents." She stared. "Then not all is lost?" "Perhaps. Let us go see." I helped Mallow's wardens sort the reagents crates from all the chests of Yarrow treasure. Rather than open them one by one, Mallow and Sabudara sniffed them, claiming that they knew well the aroma of the fertilizer they sought. We have sniffed the jungle for it for weeks on end, said Mallow. I smell it even in my sleep. At first they frowned and grimaced as they crawled over the crates. Then their expressions brightened, and they became overcome with excitement. It's here, cried Mallow. By the Titan's tent, it's here! I hauled the crates away from the litter, whispering, thanks sanctum, again and again, for I myself had never quite believed that Dari had possessed it all. First we found 4, then 5, and then, after some searching, we found the 6th crate of reagents, hidden in the back of one of the barns. That's all of them, yes, said Mallow. Your immunist said there were 6 crates missing of his fertilizer, true? 6, yes, I sighed, wiping my brow. But let's open them to confirm it. We did so, prying off the lids with spears taken from the dead Yarrow guards. Each of the 6 boxes contained wax-wrapped bundles of a deeply black, soil-like substance that smelled powerfully of rotten eggs. That's it, said Mallow. She almost began to weep. That's it! That's the damn stuff! It's all here! Dari surely didn't know what he had, but he's kept it out of Pictus's hands and brought us to it. My legs began to quake, and with a deep sigh, I sat down in the wet grass. As the rush of combat drained out of me, the rest of the night passed in a torpid stupor. Wardens tended to the Nalkari, sharing water and food and applying healing grafts. One warden went to a high hill to fire off a rocket for Yarrowdale to see. The rest of us went about opening the remainder of the crates to take inventory, yet we did so lazily and without panic. You are decent with a sword, Col, said Mallow. She grunted as she cracked open another crate. Almost as good as I am with a bow. Thank you, I said politely. If only all fights were so courtly as to allow you to get so close, she said, and engage in single combat, then you might actually be useful. I smirked, happy to hear her jibes again. That was not single combat, I said. There were 2 of them, at least at the start. Well, yes, after I shot one in the neck. You'd have had none at all if you just stayed low, but... Then she trailed off, her face troubled. What is it? I asked. She glanced about. I smelled something. Rotting. So, there were over 30 corpses just a few span away. Yes, but those corpses are freshly killed, and not yet rotting. I smell flesh that has been putrefying for some time. I could not smell it at first, because of the aromas of these reagents, but... Something is dead here, God. Mallow began to dart about the crates upon the litter, sniffing the air. Then she pointed to one, this one a large chest of Yarrow treasure, and a warden hurried over and pried the lid open. They peered down into the crate, and their expressions changed to utter shock. I staggered to my feet, leaning on my own stolen spear. What? I said wearily. What is it now? God, said Mallow slowly. Come and see this. If it is ill news, can you at least give me a hint? No, just come and see. I limped over to them. The smell of rot was indeed terrible, and I covered my nose with my sweat-soaked shirt and peered inside the Yarrow chest. A body lay within, the body of a man lying on his side and bunched up like an infant in slumber. He was rather small, dressed in rags, but most notable was what was placed beside him. A warding helm painted white. In the faint light of the fading moon, it almost resembled a skull. I gazed at the body of the little man and the white painted helm beside him, my pulse thudding in my ears. No, I whispered. I know, said Mallow. It can't be. I know. Let's get him out and look him over. We pulled the body out of the chest and placed him on the road. He had perished of a stab wound, I saw, just under his heart and placed between the ribs, an expertly given wound if ever I'd seen one. His face was distinctly ratherous, with a thin nose and rather small eyes, though his eyes were faintly green, and he had a rather starved look to him, much like one might expect from a man who had been surviving in the wilderness for months on end. But more, he looked exactly like the drawing Mallow and I had studied, the sketch of the man who had come to the Treasury Bank and opened the Apox box. Mallow sniffed the air. In bed about 2 days, she pronounced, perhaps more. I stayed silent, my mind whirling. Could it truly be him? Asked Mallow. I knelt and pulled his shirt up to his collar. There, in ghostly imprints all across his belly and chest, were dozens of rounded, puckered whelps, the imprints of tiny insects that had once fed upon his flesh, or perhaps leaked stolen blood into his veins. Blockley whelps, I said quietly. Fucking hell, said Mallow, exactly as your immunist said. He sent many Blockleys to Sajado, then to himself to draw the proper bloods into his flesh. By the bloody eyes of the fate! It looks like Dari finally got hold of our friend Sunus Pictus and killed him before this devil betrayed him in turn. What a shameful way for his miserable life to end.
Okay. 45 minutes?
True? I gazed at the corpse and said nothing. Chapter 49. An imperial barge and several dozen Apoc militi awaited us at the bend of the River Tariff at the edge of the Elder West, having come when they'd seen the rocket in the sky. They escorted us, and all we'd secured, into the city. As we travelled, I gave them my report, which they quickly recorded and sent to Prefector Cardas by scribe.
He speaks with the prince now at the high city, said the militist to me. Yet his talks shall soon change. I wager we have all his realm's fortune aboard our vessel.
Once we returned to Yarrowdale, we brought the entire horde into one of the preparation rooms of the fermentation works, the very chamber where I'd been so thoroughly dosed before my trip to the Shroud, in fact. There, Thelonai and Arna both awaited us, and Thelonai watched fretfully as the wardens laid out each crate, listening as I breathlessly recounted all we'd experienced. When I finished, there was a long silence. Pictus's corpse lay in the open Yarrow chest before Arna. The wardens sat beside the long sought 6 crates of fertilizer, weary but triumphant. I stood at the edge of the room, feeling far less victorious, for as I'd spoken, Anna's blindfolded face had twisted in a way I found distinctly unsettling. Phil and I stared down on Pictus's body. How strange it is to feel